Welcome to Architects of Opportunities, a series on founders of nonprofit organizations. We will look at how one person or a few people saw a need in your community and found a way to fill it. Who are the people that are inspired to see a need and bring others together to lend a hand, and not for profit? They are the nonprofit founders. Founders are everyday heroes. They envision possibility and persevere to accomplish it. Founders in all sectors and across the country share a common vision. They want to make a difference. Today, we will introduce you to one organization who makes a contribution to your community. Hello and welcome to Architects of Opportunities. Today we are talking with the folks at New Leader Scholarship, the founder Ruth Goldman and Bill Goldman and two of their scholars. Mapp, Angel Koo, Ruth Goldman, and Bill Goldman. And we'll tell you all a little bit about them. I'm so happy that you're here today. Thank you everyone for coming. And I'd like to start off, Ruth, with you and ask you, what made you start this organization? How did you get the inspiration for it?
Well, the answer is twofold. I knew that I was close to retirement. I was going on early retirement, and it also happened to be my birthday. So Bill and I were thinking about what could we continue to do that really was the kind of work we'd always done. I was a professor at several universities, but the last many years at San Francisco State. And the most important thing that I did was to mentor and work with students. But in particular, my emphasis was on students of color and recent immigrants. The second part is that I myself am an immigrant and a Holocaust survivor. I came here when I was very young, here being the United States from Poland, and I wouldn't be where I was without public education and without scholarships. So my entire school education is always in public schools, starting in New York and ending up at the University of Berkeley, where I also taught. So the kinds of programs that Bill and I have been involved with our entire lives have always been around social justice, political activism, and program development around these issues. So now we had the opportunity to continue doing the same work. How do we get leaders, scholar activists, people of color, recent immigrants, people that hadn't had the same opportunities as others, that lived in poverty essentially, and had demonstrated both scholarship and resilience. So you see two of them sitting right here, and they're transcendent, and they will become the leaders, not will become. You're seeing two leaders of the future in the real America.
We liked what we were doing and what we had done and wanted to hone that in a particular focus. And leadership seemed to be one of the big questions going forward. For the new America, for all of the young people who were starting to get to college, finish college, the question became, well, then where were the new leaders?
Ah, okay.
And that they needed to be, in our view, the people who had come from the most improbable beginnings with the greatest potential, and then with some help able to realize their dreams and be role models for those who were coming behind them. And we then set out to find such people and to learn what they needed and to see what we could do to try to help them.
And I understand your whole family's involved in this.
Yes, all of them are. It was also important that they be public universities, because this really is our perspective that this is how we want to recruit our scholars. So they start in the 5 public universities, the UC and the CSU system, right around us, the Bay Area, because we wanted to do a lot of hands-on work. And then what we've decided, and this speaks to both leadership and credibility, that not only were we going to help students graduate, and the help, by the way, the financial help is just one part of it. We've learned a lot of things along the way. Given our own careers and background, Bill's an MD, I'm a PhD, and we're both in the mental health field, that to be leaders that had credibility, these scholars needed to have increased education. So not all of the scholars, but most of them, about 75%, go on to graduate school. And they're essentially the UC system in California and graduate schools mainly in the Ivies. So it just gives you a sense of who the scholars are. And it's across the board, but generally in the helping services, in mental health and education.
I came across this opportunity through a friend who was working alongside me in the student-parent community, and who also lived in the student housing at UC Berkeley. This is a community that really wants to know who you are. And it was okay to be my whole truthful self. And it was a moment of revelation to be able to share authentically my background. I was a product of the foster care system. I had a mother who was mentally ill, and before that I had put that behind me, and I didn't want to share that, and this was a community that really wanted to know exactly what I had overcome. And I really appreciate what you said about leadership, because it's been, I've received a number of scholarships, but to have a community of support that is not a handout, but really lifts you up as a leader, and who's with you. I mean, it's been years since I've received financial support, but the relationship has endured, and it's a friendship, and it's a community that I have leaned into in so many different ways.
I'm a freshman in San Francisco State, and so at the time I was undocumented, and so there weren't a lot of scholarship opportunities that were open to me. But my mentor Sally said, "Hey, I talked to this scholarship. They're opening it up to students who don't have citizenship." And so I immediately, went out and looked for the scholarship. I went to one of the workshops at San Francisco State, and I met Bill and Ruth there. And ever since then, I kind of never looked back. I kind of just got taken into this network and really supported and empowered, because I think at the time I was just maybe a little too quiet, maybe just seeing injustice but not really taking much action. But once I joined the network, I just sort of started to grow, gained a lot of confidence, and then I always go back to Bill and Ruth, and they just helped me develop as a leader and sort of mature my understanding what it means to really give back and contribute to social justice.
We have over 100 scholars from when we started 17 years ago, and we're in touch with the majority of them.
Oh, that's fantastic.
We bring them together once a year to honor. This year it's going to be October 28th, to honor the scholars, and also as a fundraiser. And then we have a full-day retreat the second day, in which we take a look, we survey the scholars and find out what's on their mind and what kinds of workshops would be helpful. So we spend a day doing workshops with them. And at this point, the scholars lead the workshops.
Oh, that's
so
wonderful.
It didn't used to be the case initially. And we bring scholars in from all over the country.
Oh,
So it becomes very welcome, and it enriches the cohort.
So I want to shift back to you, Rue. Where are you right now? What amazing things are you doing?
Well, more than I ever imagined. Let me just say that. I had always had a mind for activism and business, and thought a lot about social entrepreneurship around the time that I graduated. And I had, through my mentorship experience, a lot of opportunities to think through some of the, ideas. And I landed on starting a blog in 2009 that talked a lot about my experiences growing up. I was in a foster home that actually had a lot of positive resources that helped me to connect with the outdoors, and I love technology. I love to find ways to help people's lives be better, and started a blog called Outdoor Afro, and that blog opened up to a national conversation, and I'm proud to say that now I am the CEO of a national nonprofit that is now getting thousands of people reconnected to the outdoors, inspired by that blog. And every step of the way, as I've had various opportunities and moments of reflection and big decisions to make, New Leader Scholars have been there for me, and specifically Bill and Ruth and their son Eric, who was my mentor, has been really it's been a grounding experience for me, and has given me the confidence to embrace the the platform, but also the big opportunities that have come from it. And it's taken me places I never thought that I would go. I've been to the White House. I have been able to have some wonderful positions in the public. I'm now serving as a California State Parks Commissioner, and also it's important for me to share with everyone that I'm also a mother. And I have 3 beautiful children who have been with me every step of the way. And when I think about what the profile of a mother with 3 children, who's unmarried or who came from the foster system, we have absolutely, to Ruth's point earlier, overcame what those assumptions might be. And I credit the New Leader Scholar Network for helping me, even in times where it wasn't so easy, and I was quite challenged.
There was another scholar who joined, I think, during a similar cohort, Nulati Vanscourt, also undocumented, wanting to pursue medical school. And we were both about to graduate from college, and I wanted to go and pursue a PhD. And we're hitting another roadblock that a lot of these graduate schools are not accepting undocumented students. And so we started out at a Starbucks asking the question, can we find any undocumented students that are in medical school or graduate school? And that little meeting in a coffee shop sort of turned into an organization now, which is fully funded. And we've hired our new director this summer. And so now we started an organization that seeks to advocate for undocumented students to pursue medical degrees and into graduate school. And in addition, we're also advocating for health access for undocumented people, not just the students, but the community at large. So since then, New and I sort of left our leadership positions. And I'm pursuing my doctorate at the University of California, and he's also pursuing his medical degree there as well. So my degree, I guess the technical term is pharmaceutical sciences and pharmacogenomics. So it's really seeking to, I guess, personalize medicine. So I work in a cancer research lab.
Angel, what is the group that you started to get what's it called?
So the organization's called Pre-Health Dreamers.
Wow.
It sounds like you have your own kind of New Leader Scholar
Yeah, in a way, it's
model. That's awesome.
Yeah. I think the New Leader.
Well, so do you.
Yeah, I guess so.
Absolutely.
All right, so
But that's the point, for each person to do exactly that in their area of choice. So, we don't say it should be in psychology or health or education. It's the area of importance to the scholar.
So not only did you learn about the work you did in college, your undergraduate, and now your graduate work, but you learned to be a lobbyist, really, and a political advocate. And
Yeah, I think our life stories as immigrants, we're facing a lot of struggles. And so, it's both, I think, a blessing, right? We learn how to overcome, and that teaches us, valuable lessons, I guess, in my case, how to advocate for not just yourself, but your community.
So much of what we feel is important, what we thought would be important, aside from the depth of leadership that we hoped would arise from this, was the depth of interaction among all of the scholars, the support, the resources that the scholars bring to one another. So in addition to this yearly meeting and the yearly retreat, the scholars are in touch with one another and with us, and with the multiple resources that we all bring together. We have a private Facebook and a public Facebook where all kinds of issues and questions get raised, so that regardless of the particular area that any person's involved with, there's always someone that knows about that area or knows someone else that knows about the area. So it's exactly that quality of cohesion, of deep inspiration that the scholars offer one another. And we never let them go. We're a donor-advised fund of Marin Community Foundation, so that we clearly didn't have the money to start a foundation of our own.
I'm one of many in a club of admirers of the Goldmans.
Well, they continue on. They're still hands-on with their scholars.
It's the essence of their scholarship program. It is so far beyond the financial assistance needed, necessary, the financial assistance that is generally thought of first when you hear the term scholarship, but it's what Ruth and Bill bring in terms of the daily, weekly, monthly interactions with the Goldman scholars that is the distinguishing factor of their fund. Bill and Reese, of course, set up the scholarship fund particularly to look for young people who not only had rich potential and had overcome any number of personal and family and societal barriers, but who have expressed an interest in public service.
Yes.
One of the basic things that we learned was how to learn.
Learning how to learn. Well, what a model you are for your scholars.
And it's very powerful. The scholars are really activists in terms of social justice in a very serious way, so that they're working, just across the board. They're working in, public health systems. They're working in public education. They're doing just amazing things. And our scholars, while these are all students with good grade point averages,
Top grade point.
top, actually, I should say, from the best schools you could imagine, public schools. These are also scholars that themselves have been felons. Some have been addicted. Several have brothers, sisters currently in prison, murders in their family. Many are single parents, both women and men. Some are older. We've started at age 18 with some, started at age 50 with others. Ruth's sister came in, her older sister, as a result of Rue having been a scholar. So they are so varied in background, in capacity, and interest. So it's unique and committed, yeah.
The one thing we knew was we had to find those,
Committed to their communities.
even at a young age, with the developing or developed social conscience that was strong enough to keep them forging ahead and able to use help. That was something that we came to understand more and more. The experience of so many of the scholars coming from where there never was any help. They did not know what help looked like or felt like. are learning how to help them to seek and use help.
How can the community support you?
Well, what we're looking forward to is each year we have an annual dinner that's a combination of honoring all of our scholars. And usually we have 101 scholars at this point. More than half of them come from all over the country. But we also use that as a fundraiser because it's such an inspirational experience. The help that we need, of course, financial help, is always welcomed, but the pro bono help is really very critical so that whether it's in any of the health care, obviously mental health, dental health is particularly important. Law turns out to be very helpful.
A couple of years ago, unexpectedly, there was just a wave of scholars that went into graduate school in California. So it wasn't just 5 or 6, it became 12 and 13 in addition to the new ones. Now previously, that number had been scattered through graduate school at Columbia and Princeton and Harvard, etc., Michigan. So now all of a sudden our commitment was that we were going to follow them through graduate school with financial support if they were in California. So the draw on our resources doubled unexpectedly. And that's where we're at this moment, and not quite sure how we're going to go forward with more new students, because we're committed to those that are in graduate school. That's part of the commitment.
Mm-hmm. Boy, I can see that would be the more successful you are. And they're all doing public work, public service.
Yes,
They're all
yes.
contributing
That's
to
what
communities.
that's what it's all about,
Yeah.
is that they are in some form of public service. Even in these very, very difficult times, there are about 10 that are in government in increasing positions of influence. And that is part of the goal, but similarly in the nonprofit world. And even some that are trying to meld these things in the for-profit world.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it's our honor and our pleasure to support Bill and Ruth in this endeavor. It really runs right out of their living room and runs right out of their hearts.
I help nonprofits hire staff and leaders to carry on their founder's vision. And so I've seen hundreds of nonprofits contribute to our community. We created Architects of Opportunities to share that with you. Now, nonprofit founders will tell you they don't do it alone. If you're among the 25% of us who are volunteers or volunteer board members or staff or donors, thank you. And if you're not, please join us in making a difference.